So the end of the great COVID cooperation in Parliament today. The governing Liberals, minority government, couldn't get what they need in this special COVID committee, which is unanimous consent to fast-track either of these two bills. One on penalties for fraudulent CERB claims. About 8.4 million Canadians are using the CERB. That is the life raft most people are riding out the pandemic on. Or jail time. Another bill would help people with disabilities get support. What happens now? Well, the House is adjourned till next week. Will this kill this bill? And is it the end of unanimous support for COVID-19 legislation? Let's find out. The Employment and Workforce Development Minister, Carla Qualtrough, joins us, and always good to have you on the program. Minister, I hope you and the family are doing okay. Your party could not get opposition leaders on board to fast-track this bill. What is the game plan now that you're delayed till next week?
Well, first of all, Evan, thanks for having me. And let me just say how disappointed I am that even when the option to do the disability piece standalone was on the table, the Conservatives didn't take it. And I was quite surprised by that, to tell you the truth, because I know that there had been back and forth on the CERB, and we'd had discussions on different measures otherwise. There seemed to be consensus that this was important, that this was basically a very straightforward piece of legislation that made two changes to income tax law. And it fell prey to broader political agendas, I'd say.
Yeah, but weren't they? They're just against fast-tracking it, right? They want debate. They want regular parliament. I'm just trying to figure out, the Prime Minister's out there on protests. Everybody's traveling around. Provinces are reopening. But the one place that's only had, and credit to Bill Curry at the Globe and Mail for this story, you guys have sat for, if you count today, 39 days since last June. 39 days in the midst of the biggest spending we've seen since the Great Depression, or the Second World War anyway. Don't you understand why they want regular sitting, so these things can be legitimately debated?
Well, absolutely. I understand, what they're trying to achieve, but the reality is they haven't put forth a proposal where everyone across the country could continue to have a say in what's going on in Parliament. So at least now, the way we're working it, and, kudos to the NDP for seeing a bigger picture here, is everybody across the country has a voice. Whether I'm here in Ottawa or I'm at home in Delta, BC, I can be questioned as a minister. I can participate in proceedings. And quite frankly, I've had more questions in this hybrid model than probably the last year or two combined. They are rigorously questioning us on what's going on with our spending and our COVID measures.
I don't know why everyone's defending the COVID-19 committee as more democratic than regular parliament, because if that's the case, maybe you guys should make a reform. But the bottom line is the opposition, frankly, they may be able to ask more questions. There's no, private members bill. There's no opposition days. Come on, they're sincerely limited in their democratic abilities to hold you guys in a minority government to account.
And I'm not saying that our model is perfect, but until we can find a way, until they can agree perhaps with remote voting, or how are we going to deal with private members' business? It's fine to say that that should be on the table for sure, but how are we going to do this when we have people in BC and Alberta and Saskatchewan? And there doesn't seem to be a way forward that they'll agree with that would allow us to meaningfully participate, all 338 of us across the country. For sure, put one on the table, but absent that, it feels really just hypercritical, in my opinion.
But just to be fair, why is it hypercritical? There's only been 39 days. Like, for example, tomorrow, there's going to be
you also are forgetting about the election.
Just a second. There's only going to be yeah, I know, but even on an election year, there's an average of 122 days without. But even an election year, that's very small. Tomorrow, there's going to be 4 hours to debate about $80 billion. The House isn't going to sit again until next Wednesday, or that special committee to debate this stuff. I mean, wasn't there an option for your government to say, clearly this is not working, we can't get unanimous consent, so why don't we just stop it? You could have done this, and it was proposed, just have a regular sitting and let the debate begin today with a reduced number of people.
Well, and then what happens to all the voices of people who don't happen to live a 5-hour drive from Ottawa? Personally, I don't think that's the way forward. And I know that a lot of Canadians and a lot of parliamentarians agree with that perspective. If we could find a way, for sure, we would like it. But what is that way forward that would allow everybody to participate if they don't happen to be in Ontario or close to Ottawa? I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, people all over the world are doing Zoom calls and virtual parliament. But let me, just because of time, one of the pieces that didn't get debated today was on fraud issues with the CERB. Jagmeet Singh doesn't like it, but let me ask you as the minister, can you tell me what number of what rate of fraud is there? Is it 1% of the 8.4 million Canadians? Is it 2%?
We estimate it's about between 1% and 2%. That's our best guess right now. And partially these numbers change literally every day, partially because we investigate things that don't turn out to have been fraudulent or don't happen to be actually incorrect. You know, we'll flag a file, find out that it's legit, and we'll move on. And then that case, which might have been suspected to be fraud, is no longer fraud, and vice versa. So, you know, we're really looking with the measures we propose today to really crack down at the people, not on the most vulnerable. With all due respect to Mr. Singh, he's playing it as we're preying on the most vulnerable. We actually want to get to the people who are preying on the most vulnerable. People who are, asking seniors to apply for CERB when they had no income last year and taking a cut of their CERB pay. That's deplorable. 3 months in, we know these things are happening way more than we did 3 months ago. And we needed the tools to be able to address them.
Can you tell us, Minister, what the CERB runs out in about 3 weeks? Will it be extended, and in exactly what form will it be extended in? And many Canadians want to know.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. But quite frankly, because we didn't move forward today with changes to the wage subsidy, changes to the CERB, including going down to a 2-week benefit, which would have given a ton more flexibility for citizens in terms of I can work for a couple weeks, I get laid off for 2 weeks, you could have applied for CERB. We actually need to regroup a little bit and figure out, absent these changes and flexibilities in both these programs, what's the next step? So we certainly know Canadians are eager to find out and certainly anxious about the future of CERB. What I can assure everyone is that we're not going to leave people hanging. There's not a world where we don't support people in some way. We just need to understanding that the CERB came into being at a different point in this pandemic when we were telling people to stay home and don't work. We want people to go back to work safely now. How do we support people who can't or who don't have jobs and not disincentivize work like some of the aspects of the CERB do?
Yeah, Jagmeet Singh standing by, so I'm going to jump to him. But he's going to ask, well, you guys gave us a draft bill so you could change it. Apparently it wasn't changed. Their big concern is they don't want to stigmatize people or penalize people or put people in jail because of this interpretation of the phrase a reasonable return for work. What's reasonable? Who defines it? If you're a worker and you say, you know what, I don't want to go to work. There's not enough PPE. I don't want to go to work. I'm immunocompromised. But there's an invitation to do so, and boom, they get nailed by CRA. Why didn't you change the wording on the bill on that?
Well, reasonable implies exactly what you're talking about, the perspective of the worker. So we looked at the language of EI, which is suitable, a suitable job, but that really qualifies the job. And for you, the job might be perfect for you, but because you've got childcare responsibilities or because you are immunocompromised and you have to take transit, reasonable really qualifies the person in their particular circumstances. And it's a lot broader, in our opinion, in terms of being able to capture the kinds of situations that might actually stop people from being able to go back to work, even if there's a good job waiting there for them.
All right, well, a fascinating discussion. We'll see what happens, and I may be talking to you on the weekend on CTV's question period as well. But Minister Qualtrough, great to have you on the program. I appreciate it. All right, take care.